In a recent op-ed, Newsom writes, quote, "California may be first, but it won't be the last. Other states are next. Democracy is next." And it's not just troops on the ground showing force. It's part of a growing pattern of federal agents clashing with elected Democrats who dare to stand up against Trump's immigration crackdown. Joining us now to talk all about it is former Republican Communication Director Tara Setmayer. She's co-founder and CEO of the Seneca Project.
We're not there yet completely, but I think that we are dangerously close to normalizing behavior like that. And we need people both outside government and inside of government saying, let's not go over that cliff because it's hard to recover.
You know, I think, Tara, that the lights around these questions of what's happening to our democracy, what's exciting, I guess, in one sense, is they seem to be getting a little bit brighter from folks taking to the streets to say no more, we've had enough, to a former president sort of in a clarifying conversation, making sense of the moment, helping us sort of contextualize it. How do you see this playing out, though, from a purely partisan point of view? Because that's the space we're in at the end of the day. We can have theoretical conversations about, the democracy and all of that, and even the rule of law and how that's applied. But it is the partisan pen that keeps pricking at the core of what I think is probably bothering so much of us when we see the government being used against citizens, against elected officials, regardless of the department, DOD or the White House itself. How do you see this political moment in helping us move beyond that into something that we can really stand the ground when we go to fight back? Because the politics is the politics.
Right. Listen, I think that we have to be very plain in the way in which we explain what's happening. You know, I would give a little bit of a word of advice to President Obama and say, listen, 2012 called and wants their campaign tactics back. This is not a time for platitudes and personal musings, veiled critiques. We have to speak about what's happening in plain language so people understand it. This isn't 2012. This isn't 2008. Those days of political platitudes are over. People need to fully understand what's happening right now. You have Democrats being arrested, being indicted, being detained, politically assassinated in a week. There are tanks rolling down the streets of our cities. There are active duty Marines on the streets of our cities. Donald Trump is tearing up the Constitution and throwing it away and spitting in our faces. So we can't sit here and be polite anymore. You can be peaceful, but the righteous anger of the American people needs to be harnessed in a way for people to understand what's at stake. And for someone like President Obama, who has so much influence and respect of millions of Americans, this is not a time to be cautious. I mean, he needs to take from the page of Winston Churchill. No, I'm sorry. He is in a position to speak plainly to the American people. You know, Winston Churchill said there is no time for ease and comfort. It's time to dare and endure. That is the position we are in right now as a country. And I would like for Democratic leadership to speak a lot more seriously and plainly about what's at stake here.
Now, let me just say this. Y'all know I'm here to be critical of anybody and everybody if they deserve it. But it is not on, in my opinion, humble opinion, it is not on Barack Obama to clean up the mess that America has made. Chuck Schumer needs to be a little more clear, a little more forceful.
Agreed.
Hakeem Jeffries needs to be a little more clear and a little more forceful.
Agreed.
Barack Obama could have said nothing because he did his duty for 8 years and then got out there on the campaign trail after that and then got out on the campaign trail after that again. His family has been put in the crosshairs. Like, I don't think it's on, to be very clear, the first black president to clean it up.
I'm not saying it's on him, but if he's going to stick his neck out and put his toe in it, then you need to go all the way in. Like, he's in a position where people are looking, especially the Democratic Party, because of the failure of leadership by so many others who are currently in office, as you named. Now Barack Obama's out there, and he's got the opportunity, he's got the platform. If he steps up to the plate, then you know what? Maybe others will say, well, listen, if President Obama can do that, maybe I can too. There needs to be some intestinal fortitude here in this moment that we're in. We can't keep having strongly worded letters from Democratic leadership when we've got tanks rolling down the streets of our country.
I think you did. I will just say, if we're calling for President Obama, I would like to see President George W. Bush.
I agree.
Because
I've said the same.
There are Republicans in this country who have not had the courage that Michael Steele has had.
Well, I think
no argument for me on that. We were talking about President Obama. But believe me, somebody posted something recently on social media about President Bush, and I said, where the hell has he been? He should have come out and spoken very forcefully the way he did, at least in 2020, when all the presidents got together. That's great. He's been AWOL since. He's another one. And all the other Republicans, too, that the ones that are elected in particular, who complain in the Senate dining room or in the Senate hallways to each other, but won't do it publicly, the same applies to them. Now's the time to speak up. But we were just talking about President Obama coming out, so that's why I said what I said about him.
Let's take a listen to what Brad Lander had to say today about authoritarian overreach.
Attorney General Pam Bondi has described it as they are trying to liberate cities from their elected officials. But what that means to me is they are trying to wreck the rule of law. I mean, this is how we work. We elect people to lead. And what Trump wants to do is stoke conflict, instill fear in these families, and like figure out how far they can push an authoritarian overreach. We're not going to let Donald Trump and Pam Bondi liberate America from democracy.
So here's the deal. At the end of the day, a former fill-in-the-blank or even a current fill-in-the-blank elected official, that's not the play. The play is the people. And so while you do the no kings today in 2025, right? The question is, how does that translate to the ballot box in 26? How do you sustain that? Is it going to be the compounding of aggressive, anti-democratic, authoritarian behavior by the president and his ilk? How do you translate that for people, and how do people translate that energy that we're seeing right now? Because 10 million people sat on their behinds in 2024 and did not vote, who did vote in 20, but in 24 didn't think it mattered as much because the price of eggs, whatever excuse they had or reason they had. How do you sustain that going into this upcoming cycle?
You have to make people understand what they're fighting for and why it matters. That's why we started the Seneca Project a year ago. It was to explain to women what was at stake and to explain why it was important to preserve our democracy. And that's what needs to happen now. We were out there. We were one of 200 partner organizations out there in the streets. We were in Philly on Saturday at the No Kings rally because it was so important for people to see that it is the power of the people. We, the people, are the only ones who are going to save us. We've said this for a year. And the way you do that is by narrative setting now. You explain it now. There is no off year. They are marching forward. The enemies are marching forward. They don't stop. We can't either. So you take that, you harness that energy, and courage is courageous. So the more that people see what's at stake, what's happening, how it's impacting their lives, we're facing some unprecedented things in this country. Right. That will continue on into the midterms as long as you stay on offense. Set those narratives, put them on defense, make these MAGAs explain what they're doing, and remind people that what's happening isn't partisan. What's happening to constitutional rights in this country should not be a partisan issue. People losing their benefits, veterans losing their benefits, farmers losing their farms, people being snatched off the street. These should not be partisan issues. The Constitution is not a partisan document. It's for everyone, we the people. And that's the way you frame it so people understand what's at stake. Because if they don't, you're not going to fight for something you don't understand why it's of value to you.
All right, we the people, get on up. Come on now. Need you on the streets. Tara Setmayer, Corey Brett Snyder, thank you both very much.